The email was never supposed to go to him. It was supposed to go to Jessica, my best friend and cubicle neighbor, the person who had listened to me complain about the budget cuts for 3 straight weeks, the person who understood why I was upset, who shared my frustration, who wouldn't judge me for venting my feelings in the most unprofessional way possible. Instead, I hit reply all to the entire company. 847 people, according to the distribution list. 847 inboxes, all receiving my unfiltered thoughts about the man who had just killed the project I had spent 6 months of my life building, including his inbox, including the inbox of Nathan Ashford, CEO of Ashford Technologies, the man I had just described as, and I quote, because the words are seared into my brain forever, a soulless corporate robot with the emotional range of a spreadsheet and the management style of a medieval executioner. I didn't realize what I had done immediately. I hit send with a satisfying click, leaned back in my chair, and waited for Jessica to send back her usual string of laughing emojis and supportive profanity. What I got instead was silence. Then slowly, I became aware of a strange energy in the office around me. The normal hum of keyboard clicks and phone conversations had stopped. People were looking up from their screens. People were looking at each other. People were looking at me. I glanced at Jessica's desk. She was staring at her computer with her mouth hanging open, her face drained of all color. "Chloe," she whispered, not looking at me. "What did you do?" "What do you mean, what did I do? I just sent you." And then I looked at my screen, at the sent confirmation, at the recipient list that didn't say Jessica Chen, but instead said REQ, 3 budget restructuring, all staff. The world stopped spinning. I remember the exact sensation of my heart stopping, then restarting with a painful lurch that made me dizzy. I remember the blood draining from my face so quickly that my vision went gray at the edges. I remember my hands starting to shake uncontrollably as the reality of what I had done crashed over me like a tidal wave of pure, undiluted horror. I had sent my rant to everyone, to my colleagues, to my supervisors, to the board of directors, to the man himself, the CEO, who sat somewhere in this building in his corner office, who was probably reading my words right now, who was probably deciding how to destroy my life in the most efficient way possible. "Oh my God," I breathed. "Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!" "Chloe." Jessica was at my side now, her hand on my shoulder, her voice gentle but urgent. "Chloe, you need to breathe." "I can't breathe. I can't. Jessica, the CEO. I called him." "I know what you called him. The whole company knows what you called him." She crouched down next to my chair, forcing me to look at her. "Listen to me. You need to get out of here. Go home. Maybe by Monday everyone will have forgotten." Forgotten? I accused the CEO of having the emotional range of a spreadsheet. I said he probably kicks puppies in his spare time. I said, "I know. I read it. It was actually pretty well written, all things considered." Jessica winced. The metaphor about his heart being a frozen wasteland where empathy goes to die was particularly vivid. I'm going to be fired. Probably. I'm going to be blacklisted from the entire industry. Possibly. I'm going to have to move to another country and change my name and start a new life as a goat farmer in the mountains somewhere. Okay. Now you're spiraling. Jessica squeezed my shoulder. "Look, maybe it won't be that bad. Maybe he has a sense of humor. Maybe he'll respect your honesty. Maybe." Her phone buzzed. She looked at it, and her face went even paler than before, which I hadn't thought was possible. "What?" I demanded. "What is it?" "It's from his office." She swallowed hard. "His secretary. She wants you upstairs. Immediately." The walk to Nathan Ashford's office was the longest of my life. I had worked at Ashford Technologies for 2 years, and in that time I had never once been to the executive floor. That realm was reserved for people who mattered. Vice presidents and board members, and the select few whose work was important enough to warrant a personal audience with the man who had built this company from nothing. I was a mid-level project manager. I organized spreadsheets and attended meetings, and tried to make sure deadlines were met. I was not the kind of person who got called to the CEO's office, unless, of course, I had just sent that CEO an email, calling him a soulless corporate robot, with the emotional range of a spreadsheet. The elevator seemed to take forever, each floor passing with agonizing slowness. I caught my reflection in the polished metal doors, and barely recognized myself. My face was the color of paper. My eyes were too wide, showing white all around the edges like a frightened horse. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, no matter how tightly I clasped them together. The doors opened onto the executive floor, and I stepped out into another world. Everything up here was different. The carpet was thicker, softer, swallowing the sound of my footsteps. The walls were lined with original artwork and photographs of company milestones. The lighting was warmer, more flattering, designed to make everyone who walked these halls feel important and powerful. I felt neither of those things. I felt like an intruder, a criminal being marched to her execution. His secretary was waiting for me at the end of the hall, stationed behind a desk that looked like it belonged in a museum. She was impeccably dressed, impeccably groomed, impeccably everything. Her expression as she looked at me was carefully neutral, giving away nothing. "Miss Bennet," she said, "Mr. Ashford is expecting you. Go right in." She gestured toward a set of imposing double doors, dark wood with brass handles that gleamed in the ambient lighting. The doors to the inner sanctum, the doors beyond which my career would officially end. I walked toward them on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. My hand reached out, grabbed the handle, turned it. The door swung open silently, and I stepped inside. Nathan Ashford's office was everything I had imagined, and nothing I had expected. The space was enormous, dominated by floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city skyline. The sun was setting, painting everything in shades of gold and orange, and the light streamed in to illuminate a room that was surprisingly warm. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled not with the leather-bound legal volumes I had expected, but with actual books, novels and poetry, and what looked like a collection of old comic books on the top shelf. A sitting area with comfortable-looking couches occupied one corner. Plants, real ones, not the plastic corporate kind, added splashes of green. And there, behind a desk that was large, but not ostentatiously so, sat the man I had just publicly humiliated. Nathan Ashford was not what the press photos suggested. In magazines and newspaper articles, he always looked cold, distant, like a statue of a businessman rather than an actual human being. His features were sharp and angular, his jaw severe, his eyes a pale blue that photographed as almost colorless. In person, there was something different about him. Something alive behind those pale eyes that the cameras never captured. He was handsome, devastatingly so, now that I was close enough to really see him. But it was more than that. There was an intensity to him, a presence that made the air in the room feel charged. He was holding a piece of paper. Even from across the room I could see the yellow highlighted sections, and I knew exactly what he was reading. Miss Bennet. His voice was lower than I expected, with a slight roughness to it that did not match his polished appearance. Please, sit down. He gestured to one of the chairs facing his desk. I walked toward it on autopilot, my body moving while my brain remained frozen in a state of pure panic. I sat down in the chair, which was much more comfortable than the visitor chairs on the lower floors, and folded my hands in my lap to hide their trembling. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. He continued to study the paper in his hands, my email, printed out like evidence at a trial, and I continued to contemplate whether it would be possible to spontaneously combust through sheer force of embarrassment. A soulless corporate robot, he read aloud, his tone completely neutral, with the emotional range of a spreadsheet. He looked up at me, those pale blue eyes piercing straight through to my bones. I particularly enjoyed the part about my heart being a frozen wasteland where empathy goes to die. Very poetic. Mr. Ashford. And the comparison to a medieval executioner was creative, though I think a Viking raider might have been more historically accurate, given the scale of the budget cuts. Mr. Ashford, I am so sorry. Are you? He set the paper down on his desk, laying it flat, smoothing out an invisible wrinkle with his fingertips. Are you sorry for what you wrote? Or are you sorry that you got caught? Because those are two very different things, Miss Bennet. I opened my mouth to deliver the apology I had rehearsed in the elevator, the groveling, self-abasing admission of wrongdoing that might, if I was lucky, result in being allowed to resign, rather than being fired. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the way he was looking at me, like he was actually curious about my answer, rather than just waiting for the corporate script to play out. Maybe it was the unexpected warmth of his office, the books and plants that suggested a person, rather than a robot. Maybe it was the tiny, almost imperceptible lift at the corner of his mouth that could have been the beginning of a smile. Or maybe it was just that I had already torpedoed my career so thoroughly that there was nothing left to lose. I'm sorry that I expressed my feelings in such an unprofessional way, I said carefully. And I'm sorry that you had to read harsh words about yourself that were never intended for your eyes. But I'm not sorry for having the feelings in the first place. The words came out before I could stop them, fueled by some suicidal impulse toward honesty. That project was important. My team worked on it for 6 months. We put in nights and weekends and sacrificed our personal lives to build something that could have genuinely helped people. And it was killed with a single line item in a budget meeting that lasted less than an hour. Nathan Ashford's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Go on. Apparently, I had committed to this path. Might as well see it through to its inevitable catastrophic end. You want to know why I called you a soulless corporate robot? Because from where I sit, 40 floors down, that's exactly what you look like. You make decisions that affect hundreds of people's lives, and you make them in conference rooms we never get to enter, based on numbers we never get to see. You're a name on a memo, a signature on a policy change, a photograph on the wall of the lobby. You're not a person. You're a concept. And it's very easy to be angry at a concept. I stopped, breathing hard, suddenly aware of how much I had just said, and how completely I had sealed my fate. Nathan Ashford was silent for a long moment. Then he did something I never would have expected. He laughed. It wasn't a cold laugh, or a mocking laugh, or the kind of laugh that precedes a particularly cruel firing. It was a real laugh, warm and surprised and genuine, and it transformed his entire face from distant and severe to almost boyish. "You're right," he said, still smiling. "You're absolutely right. I am a concept to most of the people in this building. A boogeyman that executives invoke when they need to justify unpopular decisions. The CEO wants this. The CEO decided that. As if I'm some kind of omniscient force of nature, rather than a person who gets his information second-hand and makes choices based on incomplete data. I don't understand. What don't you understand? Why aren't you firing me?" He leaned back in his chair, studying me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Do you know what most people do when they're called to my office, Miss Bennet?" "Pray?" Another smile, small but genuine. "They apologize, profusely, abjectly, often tearfully. They tell me whatever they think I want to hear. They agree with everything I say. They become so focused on saving their own careers that they forget to be actual human beings. That sounds exhausting. It is. Incredibly exhausting." He picked up my email again, glancing at it almost fondly. "And then there's you. Called to my office for one of the most spectacular acts of corporate self-destruction I've ever witnessed, and instead of begging for mercy, you tell me that I deserved what you wrote, that I look like a soulless robot from 40 floors down. That's not exactly what I said. It's exactly what you said, and it's exactly what I needed to hear." He set the email down and fixed me with those piercing blue eyes. "I'm not going to fire you, Miss Bennet." The relief that flooded through me was so intense, I almost fell out of my chair. "You're not?" "No. I'm going to promote you." I stared at him. The words he had just said made no sense arranged in that particular order. "I'm sorry. You're going to what?" "Promote you to a new position I've just created." He stood up, moving around the desk with a fluid grace that suggested he was much more athletic than his tailored suits let on. "Special Advisor to the CEO on Internal Communications and Corporate Culture. That's not a real title." "It is now." He perched on the edge of his desk, close enough that I could smell his cologne. Something subtle and expensive that made my brain short-circuit slightly. "Here's what I've realized, Miss Bennet. I've spent so much time managing the company's external image that I've completely lost touch with what people inside this building actually think, what they feel, how my decisions affect their daily lives. And you think I can help with that? The woman who just called you a frozen wasteland where empathy goes to die. I think you're the only person in this entire company who's willing to tell me the truth." He met my eyes. "Do you have any idea how valuable that is? How rare? Everyone around me is so focused on telling me what I want to hear that I've lost the ability to hear what I need to know." I tried to process what was happening. 30 minutes ago, I had been convinced my career was over. Now I was being offered a promotion by a man I had publicly eviscerated. "There has to be a catch," I said. "Nobody responds to being called a soulless robot by offering the insulter a promotion. The catch is that you'd have to work directly with me. Daily meetings, constant access, the ability to tell me, to my face, when you think I'm making a mistake." He paused. "Most people wouldn't consider that a promotion. Most people would consider it a punishment. And you think I would consider it a challenge?" His eyes held mine. "You're not afraid of me, Miss Bennet. That email proved it. And I need someone who isn't afraid of me. Desperately. I should have said no. I should have thanked him for not firing me, apologized again for the email, and retreated to my safe little cubicle on the 40th floor, where I could slowly rebuild my reputation and pretend this day had never happened. But there was something in the way he was looking at me, something almost vulnerable beneath the CEO mask, like he was asking for more than just an employee, like he was asking for someone to see him as a person, rather than a concept. "Okay," I heard myself say. "I'll do it." His smile was like watching the sun come out. "Good. We start Monday. My secretary will have your new office ready by then. I get an office. You get an office, a significant raise, and direct access to me whenever you need it." He stood, extending his hand for me to shake. "Welcome to the executive floor, Miss Bennet." I shook his hand. His grip was warm and firm, and when our palms touched, something that felt almost like electricity jumped between us. "Chloe," I said, "if I'm going to be telling you uncomfortable truths every day, you should probably call me Chloe." "Chloe." He said my name like he was tasting it, testing how it felt in his mouth. "Then you should call me Nathan. But only when we're alone. Can't have the whole company thinking I've gone soft." "Your secret's safe with me." His eyes crinkled at the corners. "I believe it is." The first month of my new job was the most challenging and exhilarating of my career. Nathan wasn't lying about wanting to hear uncomfortable truths. Every day, I sat in meetings with him and observed the way people interacted with him. The careful deference, the measured words, the constant awareness of the power imbalance in the room. And every evening, after everyone else had gone home, I sat in his office and told him what I had seen. "They're afraid of you," I said one night, about 3 weeks in. We were sitting on the comfortable couches in the corner of his office, take-out containers spread on the coffee table between us, the city lights twinkling through the windows. These late-night debriefs had become our routine. Not just respectful, actually afraid. Like they think you're going to fire them if they say the wrong thing. Am I really that intimidating? You're not, actually. Not once you get to know you. I pointed at him with a chopstick. But they don't get to know you. They see the suits and the corner office and the reputation, and they never get past that to see the person underneath. And who is the person underneath? Someone who reads comic books and keeps plants in his office and laughs at his own jokes even when they're not funny. I grinned at his offended expression. Someone who actually cares about this company and the people in it, but doesn't know how to show it. My jokes are very funny. Your jokes are terrible, but in an endearing way. He threw a fortune cookie at me. I caught it and cracked it open, reading the slip of paper inside. "A unexpected encounter will lead to lasting happiness," I read aloud. Very prophetic. What was yours? I looked at the fortune I had pulled from my own cookie earlier. He who sends angry emails reaps what he sows. That's not what it says. You're right. It actually says a dream you have will come true. But my version was funnier. He was laughing again. That genuine laugh that I had come to look forward to more than I wanted to admit. In the 3 weeks since I had started this job, I had seen more of the real Nathan Ashford than anyone else in this company. The one who got excited about new technology. The one who remembered every employee's name and asked about their families. The one who stayed late not because he loved power, but because he wasn't sure what else to do with himself. The one who looked at me sometimes, when he thought I wasn't paying attention, with an expression that made my stomach flip in ways I tried very hard to ignore. "Can I ask you something personal?" I said, before I could think better of it. That seems to be your specialty. Why aren't you married? Or dating anyone? The tabloids seem very confused about it. He was quiet for a moment, his expression shifting to something more serious. When you're in my position, it's difficult to know who wants you and who wants what you represent. Every relationship becomes a negotiation. Every date becomes a performance. After a while, it's easier to just stop trying. That sounds lonely. It is. He met my eyes. It was. The weight of that past tense hung in the air between us, and suddenly the room felt smaller, the distance between us on the couch insignificant. I was acutely aware of the way his shirt stretched across his shoulders, the way the city lights caught the blue of his eyes, the way he was looking at me like I was something he had been waiting for without knowing it. "Nathan," I started, not sure what I was going to say. "We should probably call it a night." He stood abruptly, breaking the spell. "It's late. I'll have my driver take you home. I can take a cab. Chloe." His voice was gentle but firm. "Let me do this, please." I nodded, not trusting my voice, and gathered my things while he made the call. Whatever had almost happened between us, we had both stepped back from the edge. But as I rode the elevator down to the lobby, I couldn't stop thinking about the way he had looked at me, or the way I had wanted to close the distance between us and find out what would happen next. Things got complicated in month 2. Not between us. We maintained careful professional boundaries, even as our late-night conversations grew longer and more personal. But the rest of the company had started to notice that the woman who had sent the infamous email was now spending most of her time in the CIEO's office, and rumors were spreading. "People are talking," Jessica told me over lunch one day, her voice low even though we were in a private booth at a restaurant blocks away from the office. "They're saying you're sleeping with him." I'm not sleeping with him. I know that. You know that. But Karen from accounting doesn't know that, and she's been telling everyone who will listen that you must have something on him. Like what? Blackmail material? Like something. Jessica leaned forward. "Look, I'm not judging. If I had the chance to seduce a billionaire, I would absolutely take it. But you need to be careful. If people think you're only in that position because you're sleeping with the boss, then everything I do will be dismissed as favoritism instead of merit." I stabbed at my salad with unnecessary violence. "I know. Trust me. I know. So, what are you going to do about it?" "My job. That's all I can do." I looked up at her. "I'm actually making a difference, Jess. The initiatives I've proposed, the town halls, the anonymous feedback system, the new mentorship program, they're all being implemented. People are starting to feel like leadership actually cares about them. And Nathan, how does he feel about you?" The question made my heart stutter. "He's my boss. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give." But late at night, alone in my apartment, I let myself think about the other answers, the way Nathan's hand lingered when he passed me a document, the way his eyes tracked me across the room, the way he found excuses to be close to me, leaning over my shoulder to look at a report, sitting next to me on the couch, instead of in the chair across from it. The way I found myself dressing more carefully for work, spending more time on my hair and makeup, telling myself it was about professionalism, when really it was about wanting him to look at me the way he had that first night in his office. I was falling for my boss, the man I had once called a soulless corporate robot, and I had no idea what to do about it. The breaking point came at the company holiday party. It was a lavish affair. held in the ballroom of one of the city's most exclusive hotels. Everyone who mattered at Ashford Technologies was there, dressed in their finest drinking champagne that cost more per bottle than I used to make in a day. I wore a dress I couldn't really afford, deep green velvet that hugged my curves in ways I usually avoided at work. Jessica had helped me choose it, insisting that I needed to look the part of an executive now. "Holy shit," she breathed when she saw me at the party. "Nathan is going to lose his mind." "That's not why I—" "Sure it isn't," she grinned. "Go find your man. I'll cover for you if anyone asks. He's not my—" But she was already gone, disappearing into the crowd, leaving me alone with my champagne and my racing heart. I found Nathan near the windows, looking out at the city lights. He was wearing a perfectly tailored tuxedo that made him look like he had stepped out of a James Bond movie. And when he turned and saw me, his expression made every penny I had spent on this dress worth it. Chloe. My name came out rough, like he had to force it past some obstruction in his throat. "You look extraordinary." "Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." He didn't smile at the joke. He just kept looking at me with those pale blue eyes, something burning behind them that I had never seen so clearly before. "Dance with me," he said. It wasn't a question. I set down my champagne glass and let him lead me to the dance floor. His hand settled on my lower back, warm through the velvet of my dress, and I felt the touch in every nerve ending of my body. We danced. Properly at first, maintaining appropriate distance, two professionals sharing a dance at a company function. But somewhere in the middle of the second song, the distance started to close. His hand pressed more firmly against my back. My fingers curled into the fabric of his jacket. Our bodies moved together like they had been practicing for this moment all along. "People are watching," I murmured against his shoulder. "Let them watch." "Nathan, I'm tired, Chloe." His voice was low, meant only for me. "I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of maintaining appropriate distance. I'm tired of watching you walk into my office every day and forcing myself not to touch you. We can't. I work for you. It would be— I know what it would be. I know all the reasons why it's a terrible idea." He pulled back enough to look at me, and the raw honesty in his eyes stole my breath. "Tell me you don't feel this, and I'll never mention it again. Tell me I'm imagining the way you look at me, the way you find excuses to be close to me, the way you bite your lip when you're trying not to say something inappropriate. Tell me I'm wrong, and I'll accept it." I should have told him he was wrong. For the sake of my career, my reputation, my carefully constructed professional boundaries, I should have stepped back and pretended that my heart wasn't racing so fast it hurt. But I was tired, too. Tired of fighting this. Tired of pretending. "You're not wrong," I whispered. He kissed me. Right there on the dance floor, in front of the entire company, Nathan Ashford kissed me like the rest of the world had ceased to exist. His hands cupped my face with a gentleness that contrasted with the intensity of his mouth, and I melted into him, forgetting where we were, forgetting who might be watching, forgetting everything except the way he made me feel. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, I became aware of the silence around us. People had stopped dancing. People were staring. "I think we just created tomorrow's gossip," I said weakly. "I don't care." He took my hand, threading his fingers through mine. "Come with me." He led me out of the ballroom, past the shocked faces of our colleagues, into the quiet hallway beyond. We kept walking until we found an empty conference room, and then he pulled me inside and kissed me again, properly this time, without an audience. "I've wanted to do that for months," he admitted, when we finally came up for air. "Since the day you walked into my office and told me I was a soulless corporate robot. To be fair, I said you had the emotional range of a spreadsheet." "Same thing?" He was smiling, really smiling, and I realized I had never seen him look so happy. "What happens now?" "I don't know. I've never made out with a CEO in a conference room before." "Neither have I." He laughed. "Well, I've never made out with anyone in a conference room. This is new territory for both of us. People are going to talk. They already talk. At least now they'll be talking about something real." He took both my hands in his. "I know this is complicated. I know there will be challenges. But I don't want to spend another day pretending I don't have feelings for you. I don't want to waste any more time being afraid." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to do this properly. Dates, dinners, getting to know each other outside of work, building something real." He paused. "But only if that's what you want, too." I thought about all the reasons to say no. The gossip, the power imbalance, the risk to my career and my reputation. Then I thought about the way he made me laugh, the way he listened when I talked, the way he had built an entire position, just so someone would tell him the truth. "Yes," I said. "That's what I want too." His smile was like sunrise. "Then let's figure this out. Together." The next 6 months were a whirlwind of adjustments and revelations. We had to navigate the awkwardness of being a couple at work, which meant creating new boundaries while dismantling old ones. I transferred to a different department to avoid the appearance of impropriety, a lateral move that actually gave me more responsibility and independence than my previous position. Nathan started attending more town halls and department meetings, taking my advice about being visible and approachable. The whispers about us never fully stopped, but they changed in tone as people got used to seeing their CEO as a human being who laughed at jokes and remembered birthdays, and was clearly, visibly, happily in love. Because that's what it was. Love. I fell for Nathan slowly at first. Then all at once, I fell for the way he brought me coffee exactly the way I liked it, for the way he defended me against anyone who questioned my qualifications, for the way he looked at me across crowded rooms like I was the only person who mattered. I fell for the man behind the CEO mask, the one who was kind and funny and occasionally insecure, who had spent so many years alone that he sometimes didn't know how to accept affection, who loved me with a fierce devotion that took my breath away. And he fell for me too. The woman who had accidentally destroyed her career with an angry email and somehow built something better from the wreckage. The woman who wasn't afraid to tell him hard truths. The woman who saw him, really saw him. Not the concept, but the person underneath. He proposed on the 1-year anniversary of my infamous email. We were in his office, sitting on the same couches where we had shared so many late-night conversations. The city sparkled outside the windows, and I was telling him about a new initiative I wanted to propose, when he suddenly got down on one knee. "Nathan, what are you—" "1 year ago, you sent me an email that called me a soulless corporate robot." He pulled a small box from his pocket. "It was the best thing that ever happened to me. You're proposing right now?" I was in the middle of a sentence. "I know. You were explaining your 5-point plan for improving cross-departmental communication. It was very impressive." He opened the box, revealing a ring that sparkled almost as brightly as his eyes. But I've been carrying this around for 3 weeks waiting for the right moment, and I realized there is no right moment. There's just now, and us, and all the moments we're going to share for the rest of our lives. You're terrible at this. I know. I've never done it before. He smiled up at me, that smile that had gone from rare to frequent since I came into his life. Chloe Bennett, you changed everything by telling me the truth. Will you marry me and keep telling me the truth for the rest of our lives? I was crying and laughing and probably ruining my mascara. Yes, of course, yes. He slid the ring onto my finger and pulled me into his arms, and I thought about all the things that had led to this moment. The yellow light I should have stopped at, the email I should have checked before sending, the job offer that should have been too good to be true. None of it made sense. All of it made perfect sense. We were married in the spring, in the same ballroom where we had first danced, surrounded by friends and colleagues and the life we had built together. I wore white. He wore the same tuxedo he had worn that night, and when the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, the applause was thunderous. I can't believe we did it, I whispered as we walked back down the aisle together. Which part? The wedding? Or the part where we turned an email disaster into a love story? Both. All of it. I squeezed his hand. Thank you for not firing me. Thank you for calling me a soulless corporate robot. He grinned. It was exactly what I needed to hear. That was 2 years ago. Now I run the Community Impact Division at Ashford Technologies, a department that grew out of my original role and became something I'm genuinely proud of. Nathan still works too much, but he's better about it than he used to be. He comes home at reasonable hours because home is where I am. We still have late-night conversations in his office sometimes. Take-out containers spread between us, just like old times. But now those conversations end with us going home together, to the life we've built, to the future we're creating day by day. Sometimes I think about that email, the one that should have ended my career but instead started everything that matters to me now. I think about how terrified I was, how certain I was that my life was over, how I never could have imagined that disaster would lead to this. What are you thinking about? Nathan asks, pulling me close in the darkness of our bedroom. That email. Ah. I can hear the smile in his voice. The greatest love letter ever written. It was an insult. It was honest, and you were right about a lot of it. He kisses my forehead. I was a soulless corporate robot. Until you. You were never soulless, just lonely. Same thing, sometimes. He's quiet for a moment. Thank you for seeing past it, for sitting in that chair in my office and refusing to grovel, for being brave enough to tell me what I needed to hear, instead of what I wanted to hear. Thank you for listening, for being curious instead of offended, for taking a chance on me when everyone expected you to fire me. Best decision I ever made. Hiring me or marrying me? Yes. I laugh, settling into his warmth. I accidentally sent a rude email to the CEO. He called me to his office and changed my life. Some mistakes are just mistakes, and some mistakes are the universe pushing you exactly where you need to be.